Today I want to show you how I'm going to recreate the advertising shot that Apple did for the iPhone 16 Pro. But we're actually going to change it up a bit. It's true that it's a render, but I want to help you understand how to set up the lights to take a similar photograph. I'm Marco, an advertising photographer. I live and work in London, and here on the channel, I share videos about photography and post-production. If you didn't know me yet, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, a supportive comment, and most importantly, check out all the little links down below. What are we going to do today? First of all, we're shooting on a black table, like this, so being white, I won't have the reflection of all the lights bouncing off the phone. We need to try to exclude, as much as possible, any reflections that might come from, say, an object that's very close. The white wall isn't a problem, nor is the wardrobe over there, because it's already quite far away compared to how close the lights will be. As I mentioned, I've placed the iPhone on a glass bottle to lift it off the surface and give me the chance to light it from below. I've already set up a flash at the back to illuminate the wall, because, while it's true that this is a photo taken on a black background, I need some light bounce to outline the edges, so that it stands out even more once it's cut out. Here, I've set up a C-stand, on which we'll definitely mount a 20 to 90 centimeters strip box, and I've got two Godox AD400 Pro lights, with two softboxes and two 20-degree grids that will position to shoot at two diffusion panels. If you don't have these, just buy any flag, build one, or get some diffusion panels. There are loads of options. I've positioned the strip box, and as you can see, it's very close to the phone, because, with such a small surface, we need to get quite close to have a really enveloping light. But obviously, during the shoot, we'll take a look and see if we need to move it further away or closer. Now I'm going to set up the camera. I'm using a Sony A7 with a 24 to 70 millimeters. I'm not using a macro lens because the phone is already big enough for me to focus from 50 millimeters to 70 millimeters. We'll probably shoot between 60 and 70 millimeters because I want to recreate the same perspective that Apple created. Alright, we should be about right in terms of perspective. Now let's set the camera settings. Since we're going to do focus tracking, we'll stick to an aperture of f9 so we don't get diffraction. The shutter speed is set to 1:125, and let's lower the ISO quite a bit because I'm using a very powerful video light. It won't actually be in the frame, but the lower we set it, the better, especially since we have enough power with the flashes. Let's try taking a shot using a power of 1.8V plus 0.5V, also with this Godox AD400 Pro, and see what we start to get. Alright, we can already see that we're starting to light up the phone. I think the light is a bit too close, so I'm going to move it back slightly. I also need to shift it a bit more to the front, this way. I'll be able to illuminate the features of the button, and, of course, the new shutter button a bit better. Let's take another shot. Okay, as you can see, it's already looking much better. Now we set up the lights first, and then we do the final shot properly. We already have excellent lighting on what is the edge of the iPhone, which in this case could be shaded a little better with a panel, but we will evaluate after having mounted all the lights to understand precisely whether it is necessary or not to do this thing. I still can't quite brighten the shutter button with the overhead light, but we'll figure out how to do that later. In general, we need to work a bit on the details of the phone. The camera area is starting to get some light. We can definitely proceed now to turn on the secondary light positioned at the back, so I'm just going to set that up. This light will work in slave mode because I don't have another Godox, just the 400 watt light set to a 64th. Let's see what we get. Alright, let's brighten up the back a bit, and we'll leave the bottom part of the iPhone alone since it has the film on it. Obviously, we need to focus everything to light up the edge a bit more. It needs a bit more light, and especially, I need to direct this light towards the bottom. So, I'm going to tilt it down, and increase the power a bit more. Let's switch to a 30-second exposure. This way, I'm simply creating a gradient on the wall. That gives a lot of light back onto the details of the phone at the bottom. At the top, it shouldn't be too overpowering. As I mentioned, we can definitely start to see it on the edge, but we don't have as much light on the upper part. The light on the phone should be there at the top, but it shouldn't be too strong, so I might lower it just a tad. Maybe to a 64th at plus 0.5. I'll angle it a bit more downwards. There we go. Less light on the top because if we need it, we can always add it later. Overall, we're liking the light we're creating. Of course, you can't see it yet, but I'm definitely studying it. And we need to add 2 more lights. So, let's start getting the diffusion panels. I'm going to set both of them up with magic arms, but since they need to go under the main light, I might raise them slightly to fit. There we go, like that. Right, we'll set the first one up here. And then we'll put the second one on the opposite side. Now, to understand what is happening with the panels, I'm going to take another photograph to see if there is an influence due to the main light. Okay, as you can see, they really lighten the photograph very slightly, so we're good to go. I'm going to position them much more to the side, because we need to have this contour of light coming from the edge of the phone. Let's start placing a light. In this case, I recommend positioning the light quite laterally. This way, we can practically achieve a sort of gradient because we're using the grid, as you can see. So, there's this brighter part that then fades into the panel. Then I can take a look with the pilot light to understand what kind of light I'm going to get. Let's set light B to a 16th at plus 0.5 and see what we get. As you can see, I haven't balanced the white yet, etc. Maybe we should light it up more at the bottom, and of course, we need to increase the power as well. Let's go to an 1/8 at plus 0.5. There you go. By shifting the gradient downwards, I've managed to reduce some light on the top. We can further accentuate this by getting even closer to the panel, but we have to be careful if the upper part obviously has an impact. Okay, let's take another photo. As you can see, the camera reflects the light almost in a very similar way to the photo that Apple took, but I really don't like the shape that comes out with this reflection. So, in this case, we could consider taking a photo with all the lights off, and then one light on the side, and another on the opposite side. This way, we can create a composition later on. Now, I'm going to position the light on the opposite side. It needs to be as mirrored as possible to achieve the same effect. Let's take a photo. Look at the difference just by positioning that light a bit further away. Compared to this one, it gives me a much more interesting gradient. So, let's try to take another photo. There you go. You see, now we have a much softer gradient. I need to try and position this light a bit better. Let's also take a look at the positioning of this one. I'm lowering it a bit. Nice gradient here. Opposite side needs work. On the opposite side, I'm not too keen on it, but we can work on it. It's really about moving the light millimeter by millimeter. Look, now it's a bit more interesting here. The cameras have great light. Maybe the gradient in this case is a bit too long, but I don't want to create too defined a line on the side of the phone. That's a bit of a downside to creating the lights naturally. Look at what it's telling me now. It's a bit stronger, but it should be softer and better, so I'm going to bring it back to how it was before. I'm going to delete all the photos for a moment so we only have the one we're interested in. Look at that lovely light. Right now, we just need a bit of brightness on the front here. We might have a bit of trouble because of how I set up the scene, so I'll just do a few tests with a little panel, or rather a white sheet. because if we like it, I'll grab a proper panel and position it fixed down below. Okay, you see it. Gives us a lot of brightness, but it's obviously a bit too flat, so we need to find the right position. I'll also lower the light at the back a bit more so it doesn't have too much influence on the set. I'll set it to 128 plus 0.7. As for the front brightness, let's try raising this little panel a bit. Let's see if we can manage it. I need to lift it slightly. For the position, I'm using the two covers from the flash, which I think can work this way too. We'll get there. You see, I can read it on the button, even a bit at the bottom. Maybe we can open up the blacks and the shadows a bit. Then I'll push the contrast a bit. Okay, you see here on the front we've got some reflection reading, but I'd like just a bit more, so I can brighten it up. We've got a lot of dust around that we'll clean up shortly. On the button, obviously, we can't catch the reflection of the main light, which should probably be much further forward. So let's try moving it a bit more. Hopefully, we can capture it. As you can see, it's a bit better, but we need to find the exact angle. If I move it even further away, I have a problem because I'm practically losing light on the phone. Let me show you. Maybe angling it a bit more towards the product will help. As you can see, I'm lighting up the wall more now, and we don't want that. So we need to find a compromise to say this is the right balance. In my opinion, we need to work on the button either in post-production or with a composition done later, by completely moving the light on the phone. I think we're getting there. As for the lighting, I'd like to brighten it up a bit more, but if I bring the sheet too high, it'll create a sort of flat brightness. So we can also consider just doing a composition shot afterwards. Look, as you can see, I'm flattening everything out too much. But if it's needed, I think it's more natural to have it this way, so just a light touch of brightness. Then if we want, we can do a composition shot that we'll use just for the front part. Everything seems fine to me. It wouldn't even be necessary to correct the perspective, because I can simply work on the cropping, obviously, done just in Capture One. Let me show you that if I want, I can crop it a bit. There we go, that looks much more centered. Now we've got a bit more light in the camera area up top. I think we can start creating the first focus stacking shot, but before we do that, we obviously need to clean the product. In this case, I'll remove the dust in another way, using an electric blower. This way, I can get rid of all the dust. Let's see if that's enough. As you can see, it's much cleaner than before. And I'd say now I can analyze the focus stacking. We've got a whopping 37 photographs. Let's see what we've got. Alright, let's start with this photo. I'll select the last one, export them. As 8-bit TIFFs, that's fine. LZW compression, Adobe RGB color profile. I'll put them in a folder I'll call iPhone. Okay, we've exported the photos. I'll select them all and drag them into Helicon Focus. Once that's done, I'm ready to render. Let's leave method B. Let's render it and see what we get. We'll save the photo, still as a TIFF, in the same folder, and have a look. So, first of all, look at how much resolution there is. The focus time is spot on. We just need to tweak it a bit around the cameras. The Apple is perfectly readable, even the buttons. In general, the front part is already quite clear in my opinion. There is no need to work further. I'd say that overall, the side reflection is really interesting this way. There's no need to cut it like Apple did. It looks natural. Especially the one on the left, which is really lovely. We can even mirror it. The only thing we need to do now is work on the button. I want to highlight it a lot, so let's create a composition shot just for the button and see what we need to do to achieve that. I reckon with the side lights, we've done enough, so they're not even necessary anymore. We can work selectively, so I'll completely remove them now. To get light on the button, I probably need to bring this light in really close. Let's see if we can manage it this way. Of course, I'll adjust the focus and zoom in just on the button so I can check if it's in focus. It should be. Let's take a photo like this. Okay, we've got the light I wanted. Look how much more interesting the button is with this beam of light at the bottom. Let's just check the focus to make sure it's perfect. It seems to be. Of course, there's dust and all that. In general, this other button also has really interesting light, so we can export this photo as a composition shot. As you've seen, this was the shooting tutorial, and I think the final result will be absolutely amazing. In fact, I can't wait to retouch this photo and especially show you how I edited it. I should mention that, as you've seen, I didn't do a shot for the color checker, mainly because it's a black color. So what we'll do is desaturate everything and then add a bit of that titanium look, that sort of color that leans more towards titanium, which is actually a very neutral color. But maybe we'll try to give it a bit of a tone based on what Apple has on their site. However, in general, I could have simply used the color checker to do the white balance, but I didn't because I prefer to desaturate this way to exclude any chromatic components. Also, since I used diffusion panels, the softbox might have a slightly differently colored flag, so I used a lighting scheme that involved only translucent paper. I should have placed the translucent paper in front of the softbox and used it at the back as well. But in general, since it's a black product, what I recommend is to shoot as it happens, and you won't lose anything by using the color checker. But it's always better to desaturate afterwards because we have those chromatic differences. So, this is the final result. I can't wait to retouch this photo because I'm sure the result will be amazing, and I also want to experiment to recreate exactly what is the reflection of the PRO writing that Apple also created on its device. You can hit the subscribe button down below. It's a great support for me. So, I'll see you in the next video. Remember to subscribe. If you haven't already, leave a like, a supportive comment, and follow me on social media. Links are down in the description. Take loads of beautiful photos, and bye.